Among the familiar faces of the British royal family, Princess Anne has always stood out as a quiet symbol of resilience, dedication, and sacrifice. She is not someone who frequently appears in the headlines for scandalous statements or dramatic personal affairs. Instead, for decades, Princess Anne has tirelessly served the monarchy with over 500 official engagements each year, never seeking attention or recognition. She is the only female member of the royal family to have held honorary military rank and was a constant presence by Queen Elizabeth II's side during the most pivotal moments. And yet now, to the shock and deep emotion of the British public, Princess Anne has chosen to step back. Her decision to leave is not just the conclusion of a long and fateful journey, but it raises troubling questions. Could something be unraveling within the royal household? Have the pressures, the hidden tensions, and the quiet upheavals finally become too much for even the most steadfast royal to bear? Her departure is not merely a retirement. It may well be a signal that a greater storm is brewing behind the palace walls. Under the gray skies of Edinburgh, the royal gates slowly creaked open in silence. There was no grand motorcade, no crowd waving flags like during her official engagements. But what brought the nation to a standstill was the quiet, heartbreaking image of Princess Anne stepping out of her longtime residence, the place she had called home for decades, her eyes glistening, her expression calm yet filled with sorrow. Lining the path were her loyal staff, many of whom had served her for years. Tears streamed down their faces. This wasn't just a farewell between a royal and her aides. It was the end of an era. A sacred bond built on loyalty and tireless service had come to a close. Known as the silent warrior of the monarchy, Princess Anne was the only one who never complained, never shied away from her duties. Through royal scandals, family feuds, the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and the departures of Harry and Meghan, Anne stood firm. She never once hinted at stepping back until now. So, what could possibly drive the strongest royal to finally walk away? Insiders suggest that Anne's decision wasn't just about rest or health. It stemmed from years of quiet discontent. She had seen everything within the palace walls, known too much, and said too little. But after losing her father, Prince Philip, then her mother, the Queen, Anne's position was slowly diminished. Decisions were made without her input. Her voice no longer carried weight in a system she had helped uphold. Slowly but surely, she became a relic in a royal institution that was modernizing at a pace she could no longer align with. Another unspoken reason may lie in her long-standing tension with Queen Camilla. As a staunch defender of Diana, Anne never warmed to Camilla, the woman once blamed for tearing apart her brother's marriage. Now with Camilla crowned and increasingly influential, the rift between them became more than personal. It was symbolic. Anne reportedly felt that values like honor, discretion, and integrity, things she lived by, were being eroded from within. Then came the news of Princess Catherine's battle with cancer. For Anne, it was too much. She admired Catherine deeply and considered her one of the few royals worthy of future leadership. The silence surrounding Kate's illness and the lack of clear support from the palace devastated her. Anne reportedly confided during a private meeting, "If even someone like Kate can't be protected, what hope is left for this family?" Her decision to leave her Edinburgh residence wasn't just logistical, it was symbolic. More so. It was a quiet but thunderous statement. Princess Anne didn't need a press release to make waves. All she had to do was leave, and the ripple effects shook the palace. Journalists scrambled to decode the signs from the sudden cancellations of royal engagements to the discreet moving of her belongings. It was clear this was no holiday. It was a goodbye. An era may be ending. With Anne's withdrawal, the monarchy has lost its last unwavering pillar of duty. Questions are mounting. Who will now carry the burden of tradition she so fiercely protected? Who has the strength to uphold the crown's identity amidst rising change? More troubling, could Anne's departure be a quiet warning, a signal that what is decaying inside Buckingham Palace can no longer be hidden? Did she leave not because she was tired, but because she had finally lost faith? No one has the courage to answer that yet. But one thing is clear. Princess Anne's departure did not merely close a door. It opened a chapter of suspicion, sorrow, and perhaps the beginning of one of the most profound reckonings the British monarchy has ever faced. It was never the glamour, never the power, and certainly not the praise that kept Princess Anne bound to the royal family for over half a century. It was duty, responsibility, a will of steel that never faltered under scandals, public scrutiny, or the storms of palace intrigue. In a monarchy often shaken by controversy and personal drama, Anne stood as the firmest pillar, an enduring image of resilience and loyalty. For over 50 years, Princess Anne quietly fulfilled more than 400 engagements every year without complaint or pause. While other royal family members were caught in waves of scandal or retreated from public life, Anne kept stepping forward. She didn't seek the spotlight, didn't make headlines for the wrong reasons. Instead, she ventured to the most remote corners of the UK, visiting hospitals, supporting charities, and connecting with everyday people like a true daughter of the nation. Though she never demanded attention, Anne always commanded respect, not through glamorous gowns or controversial interviews, but through sheer discipline. Palace insiders recall one instance when a royal grumbled about their workload and Anne dryly remarked, "If you can't take the pressure, perhaps you shouldn't be here." It wasn't just a witty retort, it was her life motto. Within the palace walls, Anne became known for her punctuality, her self-discipline, and her unwavering dedication to her staff. She knew the names of her security team and logistic aides. She never forgot to say thank you after an exhausting royal tour to the people who worked with her. Anne wasn't just a princess. She was a leader, and not the kind who barked orders, but one who inspired through action. Perhaps most touching was her refusal to shy away from the hard tasks, whether braving harsh weather or visiting underfunded rural communities. She showed up consistently with her signature calm smile and determined gaze. Locals often said that just seeing Anne gave them comfort. She didn't need to make speeches. The fact that she came spoke volumes, and that is what makes her departure so heartbreaking. It isn't just the end of a royal's residency. It feels like the end of an era. In a royal family torn between modern pressures and ancient traditions, Anne was the last bridge, the last stronghold of the old values. A tireless engine like Anne wasn't driven by royal protocol. She was fueled by a deeply rooted love for her country inherited from her mother, Queen Elizabeth II. At just 18, she began her official duties and never looked back. She knew she wouldn't wear the crown, wouldn't inherit a throne, but she carried the burden nonetheless without ever demanding recognition. Now, as she steps away from her longtime Edinburgh residence, people are beginning to realize what they're losing. She was never flashy, but she was irreplaceable. Then she wasn't loud or new, but she was essential. Her quiet dedication represented everything the royal family used to stand for. Service without entitlement, duty without applause. And that's why her departure hits hard. This princess who weathered every storm the monarchy threw her way is now choosing to leave quietly. Yet the loudest sound often comes not from voices, but from the silence someone leaves behind. A void that will not be easy to fill. A chapter that may be closing forever. Quietly and solemnly in the footsteps of a woman named Anne. No one in the palace ever thought this day would come. The day Princess Anne, the Iron Lady, the symbol of dedication and resilience, quietly departed, leaving behind not just an empty room, but a void that can never be filled in the hearts of those who had served her for decades. To the public, she was the Princess Royal, the most loyal member of the monarchy. But to her loyal staff, she was family. Princess Anne's departure was unlike any other royal transition. It wasn't merely about changing residence or ending a royal term. It marked the severing of a deeply human bond between a royal woman and the people who had quietly supported her day after day. One staff member, who had served Anne for 27 years, tearfully said, "She didn't just remember my name, she remembered my daughter's birthday." That wasn't just politeness, it was genuine care. Anne never treated her staff as subordinates. She saw them as companions, as indispensable parts of the machinery that helped her carry out her royal duties. Every small birthday gift, every question about a sick family member reminded them that even within the formality of the monarchy, warmth still existed. When news broke that Princess Anne would be leaving her longtime residence in Edinburgh, many staff members couldn't hold back their tears. Some hid behind doors, while others stood silently watching her convoy drive away, too emotional to speak. The air inside the palace turned heavy with sorrow. For them, this wasn't just a farewell, it was the loss of a deeply personal connection. No one understood this more than her private steward, who had been by her side since the early days of her royal duties. Sometimes I felt she knew me better than my own family, he confessed. She never shouted, never used her position as a weapon. Everything she did came from genuine kindness. That is why her departure wasn't just a personal decision, it was a collective heartbreak. Even the younger staff, those who had only worked a few years, were deeply affected. A junior administrative assistant recalled, "When I first joined, I was nervous because I'd heard how intense it could be working for the royals. But after I made a small mistake, it was Princess Anne herself who came to me and said, 'We all make errors. Just keep going.' That moment told me I wasn't just working for a royal. I was working for someone truly noble." As Anne quietly packed her keepsakes, old photos, well-loved books she often read during quiet evenings, the staff could no longer hold back their emotions. Some asked to keep a small token of remembrance. Others simply wanted one last hug because they knew with her departure, not just a room would be empty, a spirit would vanish from what they once called the quiet heart of the monarchy. The palace is no longer the same. Gone are the familiar footsteps echoing down the hall each morning. The gentle good night at the end of the day, and the figure who always stood by the window watching the sunset in silence. These small moments, seemingly insignificant, are now the ones most deeply missed to the world. Princess Anne will forever be remembered as a symbol of duty and service. But to those within the palace walls, she was the only royal who ever made them proud to serve. And now that she's gone, they haven't just lost a leader. They've lost a chapter of their lives that can never be written again. Princess Anne's absence is not merely a gap in the royal calendar. It is a seismic shift shaking the fragile foundation of the British monarchy. For over 50 years, Anne had been a silent pillar carrying the heaviest burdens without complaint. Now that this pillar has abruptly stepped away, the palace seems to sway under a wave of uncertainty like never before. King Charles III, already grappling with his health in an avalanche of political and familial pressure, now finds himself without his most dependable ally. Anne, his straightforward yet fiercely loyal sister, was always by his side to advise and support. Without her stabilizing presence, the king must now face mounting public scrutiny, palace unrest, and a growing demand for modernization alone. In a system that once thrived on discretion and discipline, Anne's withdrawal has exposed the urgent need for redefinition and reform. The media wasted no time in asking the uncomfortable question, who can replace Anne? Who has the discipline, humility, and relentless work ethic to uphold the legacy she leaves behind? So far, the answer appears to be no one. The younger royals, William, Kate, even Harry by blood, now face a legacy too vast to inherit without cracks. And as no one steps forward to fill her shoes, the void Anne leaves behind reveals an unsettling instability in an institution once proud of its constancy. But this is not only about roles and titles. Anne's departure impacts the very direction of the monarchy. In times of crisis or scandal, she was the quiet fixer, smoothing conflicts behind the scenes. Her firm yet modern-minded approach helped balance rigid traditions with a more contemporary pulse. With that bridge now gone, the royal family must confront a crucial question. Can they continue the old ways, or is it finally time to evolve? In response to the growing pressure, King Charles is said to have called an emergency meeting with his closest advisors and Prince William. While no one knows exactly what was discussed, inside sources suggest that sweeping reforms are on the table, from redistributing royal duties to slashing outdated ceremonial protocols. Anne's departure is not just a personal loss. It may be the catalyst for a new royal era, either a bold renaissance or a quiet collapse. The public is no longer passive. While many mourn Anne's departure, others voice suspicion. If even Princess Anne is stepping away, what does that say about what's really going on behind palace walls? Asked one leading newspaper, rumors swirl of internal tension, generational rifts, and ideological clashes that no longer stay hidden beneath the royal veneer. And amid the speculation, people begin to wonder, had the system become so rigid and unrewarding that even someone like Anne, long hailed as the most loyal royal, felt it was time to step away? Perhaps decades of tireless service, unacknowledged and misunderstood, finally took their toll. Her quiet exit, rather than a rebellion, might have been her final message. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear: the royal family now stands at a crossroads. They can continue to preserve appearances while the cracks widen behind the scenes. Or they can embrace the reckoning Anne's departure has triggered and begin to reconstruct from within. Because beneath the grand titles and gold-embellished traditions lies a truth Anne's silence may have revealed louder than any royal proclamation. And the most haunting part, that silence may say more about the future of the monarchy than any crown ever could. No trumpets, no public announcement, and certainly no grand ceremony like those often seen when a royal steps back. Princess Anne, known as the quiet backbone of the British royal family, chose to depart in the same way she had lived for over half a century, quietly with pride and dignity. Yet behind that silence was a symphony of emotion, of teary glances and unspoken exclamation marks. In her final weeks at her longtime residence in Edinburgh, Anne was rarely seen in public. She spent time alone walking the familiar grounds, sometimes pausing under an old tree where she once sat with her mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Her steps were not rushed, as if retracing the memories and moments of a lifetime devoted to duty. What moved her staff to tears was not just her departure, but the way she chose to say goodbye. There were no dramatic speeches. Instead, Anne left handwritten notes on the desks of her longtime aides. One received a book with the message, "Thank you for the peaceful winters we shared." Another found a silk scarf Anne had worn during cold tours. Every gift was deeply personal, impossible to forget. One longtime assistant shared, "She didn't say she was leaving, but we all knew." No, she left an unfinished cup of tea, an open notebook, and a final look that told us this place would always be home. For those who had stood beside her for decades, her departure wasn't just a royal transition. It felt like losing a relative, a friend, a mentor. Some say Anne stepped back to avoid becoming a burden to the monarchy during turbulent times. But what she truly left behind was a foundation of kindness, discipline, and responsibility. Her departure did not echo in noise, but in a quiet shock. As each small gesture became a lasting memory, analysts believe her silent farewell is a wake-up call for the monarchy. Loyalty isn't about titles, but how you serve. While others exited with chaos and headlines, Anne walked away with a fountain pen, a few handwritten notes, an unwavering grace. And perhaps the most haunting part is not that she left, but how she made everyone realize that sometimes silence is the most powerful voice, one that forces reflection, questioning, and a renewed desire to hold on to what really matters. As the last door gently closed behind her, a breeze swept through the ancient stone corridors where her footsteps once echoed day after day. No more steady taps in the morning, no sharp eyes overseeing tradition, just a heavy stillness. Yet within that stillness, her image became clearer than ever. And maybe, though no one says it aloud, they all know the truth. This was not a goodbye. It was a legacy carved permanently into the royal family's history, a farewell without words, but one that made the entire palace stop and listen. As Princess Anne's final footsteps echoed through the quiet corridors of her longtime residence in Edinburgh, a chilling stillness settled over the place that had once been a beacon of royal duty and devotion. But when her closest staff entered her private quarters to tidy up, they uncovered more than mementos of a life dedicated to service. They found something that could shake the very foundations of the British monarchy. A secret journal carefully hidden in a locked drawer, and beside it, a sealed envelope bearing the royal insignia of Queen Elizabeth II. The journal was nothing short of a treasure trove written in Anne's neat, disciplined handwriting. Each page revealed raw, unfiltered reflections she had never shared publicly. These were not the polished speeches or formal statements the public had grown accustomed to. They were confessions of torment, lonely nights, and inner conflicts over choosing duty over truth. She wrote of the sorrow she felt watching her own family fracture from within, of plots and decisions that, if made public, could rip apart the carefully constructed image of royal unity. Then there was the letter. The envelope marked to be opened only after my passing was unmistakably penned by Queen Elizabeth II. She had entrusted it to Anne personally, a final mission bestowed upon the one child she trusted most. While the contents remain undisclosed, those who glimpsed it described its impact with a blend of reverence and fear. Rumors swirl that it contains confessions related to Princess Diana's death, or revelations about decisions that reshaped the monarchy's fate. One long-serving aide recalled, "When Anne finished reading that letter, she sat still for hours. No one dared disturb her. Why not after that? Something changed in her eyes, as if she had inherited a burden no one else could understand. What could possibly be written in the Queen's final words that brought the royal family's most steadfast member to tears? These private writings in the sealed letter reframed Anne's exit from public life. It was not merely the graceful retirement of an aging royal. It was strategic. It was symbolic. A signal that deeper tremors were shaking the heart of the monarchy. In the journal, Anne reportedly expressed concerns about the succession, the mounting pressure on William, and whispered scandals still buried beneath layers of palace secrecy. "If the truth stays hidden, the shadows will devour the people's faith in us," she wrote, underlining the sentence twice. Even more chilling was the discovery of handwritten transcripts of conversations Anne had quietly recorded during high-level meetings, conversations revealing rifts between King Charles and Prince William over the future of the crown. Her annotations hinted at betrayal, disillusionment, and a desperate attempt to preserve what was left of the monarchy's moral compass. As those pages were sealed away and moved to a secure location, the question spread like wildfire. Had Anne left specific instructions for when and how her truth should be revealed? Was this her true legacy? Not the honors, titles, or years of public service, but the unleashing of hidden truths the media has already begun circling. Private investigators have been discreetly activated, but the palace remains silent, uncharacteristically so. Yet, once a seed of doubt is planted, no force can stop it from growing. The public who once adored Diana, who revered Elizabeth, now waits, not for scandal, but for truth, however painful it may be. Because if Anne truly held secrets capable of reshaping history, then her departure marks not the quiet end of a princess's chapter, but the thunderous beginning of a storm that could redefine the royal family forever. Behind the gilded door of the royal palace, not everything is as harmonious as the public image suggests. One of the most quietly simmering but deeply rooted rifts within the royal family lies in the strained relationship between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. While the press has long painted a peaceful picture among the senior royals, those closest to Anne know that she never truly accepted the woman who once stood in the shadows of Charles and Diana's doomed marriage. To Anne, this wasn't just a personal wound, but a betrayal of the very values the monarchy was built upon. From a young age, Princess Anne was raised to embody honor, discipline, and unwavering service. She believed that being a royal was not just about public appearances, but about upholding an unshakable moral standard. When Charles and Diana's marriage fell apart amid scandal and heartbreak, Anne felt devastated not just as a sister, but as someone who had dedicated her life to preserving the dignity of the crown. In her eyes, the presence of Camilla Parker Bowles during those turbulent years was unforgivable. Camilla's name was always surrounded by controversy, and for Anne, she remained a painful reminder of a past that never should have been allowed to resurface. Even when Camilla officially became queen, Anne struggled to see her as anything more than an outsider. According to palace insiders, Anne's demeanor around Camilla was frosty and controlled. Rarely were there shared laughs or moments of genuine closeness. The emotional distance was subtle but unmistakable. Anna never spoke publicly about her feelings toward Camilla, but her actions said more than words ever could. In group events, she often maintained just enough physical distance from Camilla to avoid direct engagement. And while protocol required civility, there was never warmth. What made the tension all the more visible was the sharp contrast between the two women. Anne, a symbol of old-world royal duty, stoic, private, and loyal. Camilla, the face of a modernized monarchy, smiling, approachable, but tainted by a controversial past. Their very existence in the same space was a quiet clash of two worlds that could never fully reconcile. At one charity event, Anne was seen leaving a photo call prematurely to avoid standing next to Camilla. Palace PR claimed it was a reshuffle, but whispers told another story. Observers couldn't help but wonder if Anne was sending a silent protest even after all these years. Her recent quiet departure from her longtime royal residence added fuel to the speculation. In one of her private letters, which did not mention Camilla by name, Anne wrote of the quiet erosion of tradition through careless justifications and decisions that ignore the legacy of those who came before us. The implication was hard to miss. Perhaps what hurt Anne most wasn't that Camilla became queen, but that she did so despite the pain that Diana, Anne's sister-in-law, endured. A woman Anne may have clashed with, but who in the end shared her grief and disillusionment with how the royal system could fail those within it. Now that Anne has stepped away from her duties, free from the constraints of public responsibility, the question lingers. Will she finally speak? Will she reveal the untold stories not just of her own experience, but of Diana's too? If the private journals Anne left behind contain revelations about Camilla, the royal family could soon face another reckoning. A storm not between two women, but between two clashing ideals, the preservation of dignity versus the acceptance of reinvention. And although Anne may have physically left the palace, her voice might just become the gust of wind that lifts the veil off secrets long buried within Buckingham Palace. Princess Anne's quiet departure was not merely a personal goodbye. It marked the closing chapter of an era defined by discipline, duty, and unshakable loyalty within the British royal family. For more than half a century, she was the unyielding backbone of the monarchy, a guardian of tradition amidst a whirlwind of modernization that slowly eroded age-old values. But when the doors of her longtime Edinburgh residence finally closed behind her, a silent tremor began to spread throughout the palace. The secrets she left behind, most notably a private journal and a confidential letter from Queen Elizabeth II, are now believed to hold the potential to trigger a seismic shift in the monarchy's future. Anne's private journal is no ordinary diary. Written with her sharp wit and unwavering honesty, it reveals unfiltered reflections on the inner workings of the royal household. In its pages, Anne openly questions the direction the monarchy is taking. Her words reveal growing discontent with how fundamental royal values are being sacrificed for modern popularity. According to palace insiders, she even critiques the roles of key family members, including King Charles, Prince William, and particularly Queen Camilla, whom she never fully accepted as a rightful part of the royal legacy. But it is the letter from Queen Elizabeth II that carries the most explosive implications. Handed exclusively to Anne before the Queen's death, this letter is said to contain her final private thoughts, fears, and instructions. Rumors suggest the Queen voiced deep concern over the monarchy's path, warning of what might happen if tradition continued to give way to public approval. She feared not just reputational damage, but the erosion of trust, the monarchy's most sacred currency. Even more chillingly, the letter reportedly alludes to a wound never healed in unmistakable reference to the tragic death of Princess Diana and its unresolved consequences. That the Queen chose to entrust this letter to Anne and not to her own son Charles speaks volumes. Perhaps she knew only Anne would have the strength to safeguard the truth, even if it meant carrying that burden silently for the rest of her life. Now that Anne has stepped away from her official duties, the diary and letter have emerged as flashpoints. With King Charles facing declining health and increasing public scrutiny, the documents she left behind could become both a threat and a revelation. Some say their contents may reshape the public's understanding of past decisions, including the marriage to Camilla, the sidelining of Diana, and the palace's continued silence during major scandals. The younger generation, especially Prince William, now stands at a crossroads. Should he uphold the traditional values Anne once championed, or fully embrace the modern image-driven monarchy Charles is crafting? If William gets his hands on the diary and letter, they could become either a compass guiding the future or a match igniting long-buried tensions. Within the palace, anxiety simmers. Who now holds these powerful documents? Will they dare to unseal Anne's silent legacy? Or will the truth once again be buried under royal protocol and carefully curated smiles? Anne's legacy was never about photo ops or ceremonial pomp. It was rooted in steadfast devotion to the soul of the monarchy, and now her departure has left a void, one filled with questions that could reshape the Windsor dynasty forever. Ultimately, the most unsettling question remains: can the royal family face its own truth, or will it continue down a gleaming but hollow path while the echoes of the past grow louder with each passing day?